Y'all, when you get this concept that conversion is essentially Jesus giving his identity to you as your own, a few radical changes are going to happen in your life without you trying to even make them happen. It just happens. In fact, I would say these almost serve as tests for whether you've really understood salvation. Here's the first one, letter A. You'll be assured of your salvation. You'll get assured of it. There's no more, I hope I can make it. I hope I've been good enough. I hope he grades on the curve. You realize that you're as sure of heaven as Jesus is. John Bunyan, the guy who wrote Pilgrim Progress, said for years he struggled with doubting his salvation because he always wondered, like, have I felt sorry enough about my sin? Have I prayed enough? Do I understand enough about the Bible? And he talks about a vision he had. He said, one day I was walking through this field and I looked up into heaven, it seemed, and he said, it was like I saw God the Father and Jesus, my salvation, seated at his right hand. And I knew that as long as Jesus, my salvation, was seated there, that I was assured of my position before the Father, that my salvation was in heaven. It was no longer resting upon me as something I had to earn. It was in heaven already, and I was seated there with him. It was waiting for me. He said, when I realized that, it was like this burden, this backpack just fell off of my shoulders. As long as Jesus is seated there because his position became mine, I cannot be lost. 1 John 2:1, John says, he says, we have an advocate before the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. Advocate, all it means is lawyer. That's the word they would use back then, a lawyer. Whenever I read that verse, here's what I always thought it meant. This is like me in high school. I always pictured Jesus as my advocate before the Father, and the conversation would go like this. They'd pull out a big case file marked Greer, and it would have all the stuff that I'd done wrong that week. And, Jesus would lay it down, and he'd be like, okay, I got Greer's case file. It's been a rough week. Father, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, it's not been pretty. And they start going through it. He's like, yeah, he did this again, and all this is wrong. And this one, I know this file's back in here. It's been here 100 times, but we're going to put it back in there. And all this stuff, and he'd lay it all out there. And then Jesus, my advocate, would say, but Dad, I want you to go easy on him. I want you to go easy on him because, he's a good kid. He's trying his best. And I tell you what, don't unleash the wrath on him. Just give him one more chance. Have mercy on him. Do it for me, Dad, because, I went the whole went to earth thing. And, so you owe me, so do it. That's how I thought the conversation went. Until I read the 3 or 4 verses right before 1 John 2:1, 1 John 1:9. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and, you know this word? What word is it? Just. Not merciful. It didn't say he's faithful and merciful to forgive our sins. He's faithful. Just means he couldn't do anything else and still be righteous. Here's how that works. When the subject of J.D. Greer comes up before the Father, Jesus Christ says, there ain't no file. There ain't no file that's got anything about him because everything that he's ever done was put upon me, and it would be unjust for the Father to bring back up a sin I'd committed. Because it would be unjust for God to punish the same sin twice. And if God has put on Jesus the penalty for all my sin, it would literally be unjust for him to hold me accountable for it. So Jesus at the right hand of God does not plead for mercy, he pleads for justice. You see? When you understand that, you become assured of salvation because no longer is it resting upon you. You say, well, okay, so I know he's seated there, but how do I know that he belongs to me? The easy answer is because I've claimed him. I've put my hand on the head of that lamb. If you place your hand on the head of Jesus and say, that's my sin bearer, Jesus will never move it off. If you're like, well, I'm still a little unclear on that. I wrote a book called Stop Asking Jesus Into Your Heart, okay? And I would never use a church service to promote a book because every time you promote a book like that, an angel loses his wings and a puppy dies in heaven. So I would not do that, but I would just say that I don't make any money off the book when we sell it here, so you get a copy of that. If you can't afford it, I'll give it to you because it'll help you answer that question. Those who cannot answer the question of whether they know for sure they are saved quite often are not saved because they don't understand salvation. They still think that whether they go to heaven is at least partially based on them. So when you say, are you sure you're going to heaven? They'll be like, this is the number one answer I get, by the way, from people inside the church. Well, I'm like 95%. I think I am. I'm trying my best, Pastor. I'm reading my Bible. I'm asking for forgiveness. You still think it's all about you. It's not about you. It's about him. It is finished. The one work that needed to be done has been done. And it's offered to you as a gift if you will receive it. You are saved by works, just not your works. It's saved by his work that you receive as a gift.